This happened back on my parents' homestead. Their place is out in the middle of nowhere in Midwest, sitting right across from an old abandoned cemetery. There had always been some odd stuff around there. Weird eye shine and shapes in the cemetery. Voices, singing, and movement all around the property line at night. I know this sounds weird, but after a while, we just got used to it and went on with life. Every now and then, if something different or on the property happened, we would tell each other about it. Well, one night we got home from town late, about 1 a.m. or so. As we get out of the car, we all hear coyotes next to the barn. I, being a young redneck, run in the house and grab my varmint rifle and head out to the barn. My parents had lost 3 lambs that year to them and was bound to keep it from happening again. Well, as I'm sprinting the 100 yards or so to the barn and outbuildings, alarms in my brain start going off. Something isn't right. I slow and realize all the sheep are standing around. None seemed scared or jittery. Normally they all huddle in the barn if there were coyotes that close. Right then I hear them again, just like before, on the other side of the barn. I dash around the barn and nothing. Then I hear them yipping just a little further out of my sight. Running there again, nothing. Again, I feel something isn't right. If there was something there, I should have seen them moving. It was a clear night and nearly a full moon. It happened again. I wound up on the hill on the edge of the property with a clear view of half a mile all directions. Then I hear it again, right on the other side of the property line. And that's when it clicks. It's the same as before. Exactly the same yips and howls as every other time. And it also dawns on me. It's off. Like a good song through a bad speaker. It wasn't right. It sounded wrong. I looked right where I heard the sound. I shined my flashlight at the spot, about 50 yards from where I was. Nothing. But as I start to look away, I see it. Something big and black out of the corner of my eye. I look back. Nothing. I look away again, and there it is. I kept doing this for a couple of minutes. This large blackness where there shouldn't be anything sitting there at the fence line. Then all of a sudden my hair stood on end. And I knew it. I knew it was there. Then my redneck kicked in. I decided I'd look at the fence post to its right and line up and shoot to the left of where it was. And right then, as I was lining up the shot, this bone-chilling, creepy voice sounded in my head.
Pull that trigger, and I will kill you.
That was it. I noped the fuck out. Raised my rifle and backed down the hill. About halfway down, I sprinted to the house. The next morning, some friends and I went out to the spot where I had seen it, and right there, the grass was trampled and what looked like large footprints. I don't know what it was, but I don't want to run into it again. When I was 19, I lived in a shed converted to an apartment in a backyard with my then boyfriend. We had to share a kitchen and bathroom with the people who lived in the house. They were relatives, so no big deal. And you would have to walk through the relatively large backyard to get to the apartment. One night, I had taken a shower and walked out back. It was around 9 and it was very dark with sporadic light from other houses' backlights. I was about halfway to the apartment when I heard what I thought was my boyfriend's voice say, "What are you doing?" So I was a bit startled and turned around. I see just his silhouette in the shadow standing near the corner of the main house, and he was just staring, so I replied, "Fuck, you scared me." And in a deep voice, he replied,
"You."
My boyfriend at the time was a real tool, so I just walked away toward the apartment to get dressed and do my hair. When I walked in the only door, he is sitting on the couch watching a movie. I, of course, flipped out and told him what I saw. We both went out with flashlights, but there was nothing. Still creeps me out. Sorry, this is a little long, so thank you for taking the time to read it. Any advice of what's going on would be much appreciated. The first time I saw the black shadow figure, I was brushing my teeth around 6 a.m., getting ready for school, age 9. It was still dark outside and the only light in the house was the bathroom. As I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, I looked in the mirror and I saw a reflection of a black shadow figure about 6 to 7 feet tall. Because I was looking in the mirror, I could not figure out if it was directly behind me, on the side of me, or being reflected in between the staircase and the laundry room. As I was staring at this black shadow figure, it moved into the laundry room. I figured out that it was standing in the hallway in between the staircase and the laundry room after being confused. Totally freaked out, I ran upstairs and I was crying to my mother about what I had just saw. She calmed me down and told me to pray when I encounter things like that. When I got home from school, I talked to my mom once more about it, and she told me that since she started meditating, she has experienced weird things as well. She said that she felt like something was staring at her, felt like she was in danger. She went on to tell me that she is not going to meditate anymore because she thinks it's opening gateways to demonic energies. Some years later, we had moved into another place, and as I was sleeping, I woke up paralyzed with fear for the first time. I could move my eyes from side to side, and as I did, I saw a black shadow figure standing over me. As soon as I saw the shadow figure, I closed my eyes and started praying. After a few minutes, I was no longer paralyzed. I opened my eyes to see nothing there anymore. At age 22, I woke up with straight fear and danger being felt throughout my whole body. I had my second case of sleep paralysis. Even though I was paralyzed, I was so scared I started to cry and felt the tears streaming down my face. The fear that I felt was fright that I have never felt before in my life. I proceeded to open my eyes and look around the room, and to my horror, I saw a shadow figure standing in the doorframe of my room. It's like it just stood there, watching me sleep. When looking at this entity, my brain was alerting me to the danger within this being. It was almost as if the fright is what was causing me to be paralyzed. The fear was unbelievable. I closed my eyes and started praying. I was so scared that I did not open my eyes for the next 30 minutes. When I finally got the courage to open my eyes, it was no longer there. Then when I was 25 years old, I was watching YouTube in my bedroom facing the door. I heard my door open, letting light in from the hallway. While watching the door, I was expecting to see my mother's boyfriend who gets up at 1 a.m. to go to work, and it was 3 a.m. Fully expecting to see my mother's boyfriend, I put my phone down to see what he wanted. A few moments later, I noticed there was a dark shadow looming over the cracked door that was leading the light. At first, I thought it was my mother's boyfriend's shadow, but then I noticed it was no taller than where the doorknob was. It was solid black from the doorknob down and light from the doorknob up. Still waiting to see my mother's boyfriend, the door shut. I thought, how weird is that? So I got up to see what my mother's boyfriend wanted, and he was not home, as he had already left. I go into my mother's bedroom and wake her up and ask when her boyfriend left. She said, "Honey, Norman left over an hour ago." "What is this all about?" she asked. I then proceeded to tell her that my door opened about a foot and then shut all on its own. The doorknob to my bedroom was very difficult to turn and made a loud clicking sound when opening. My door made this sound when it was opened by this entity. My mom told me to go back to bed, and I did. I was living with my mom because I had fractured vertebrae in my back in 4 different places and needed help taking care of myself. I could get up and down and out of the bed with a cane, but not much more. This is the whole reason why I was up at 3 a.m., because I was in a lot of pain. About a year ago, when I was 34, I was sleeping with my son because he was having nightmares and was scared. I noticed that night my son had fallen asleep before me, so I decided to go ahead and fall asleep myself. After falling asleep, I woke up in sleep paralysis for the 3rd time in my life. Once again, I can move my eyes, but not my body. I had known better than to open my eyes and look on the side of the bed, but I guess curiosity got the better of me, and as I was looking on my right side, moving my eyes slowly, I saw it. I then felt something touch my arm, and it made the hairs on my arm stand up. After catching a quick glance at the black shadow figure, I closed my eyes and tried calling out for my son to wake up and help me. I heard my son screaming and crying before I had even made any noise. When I finally got out of sleep paralysis, my son said I was making moaning sounds. The weird thing is, I thought I was talking clearly, telling him to pray. I honestly thought I was talking normally to my son with my eyes closed. I could have sworn I was telling my son with a clear voice to start praying. I asked my son what had woke him up, and he said that he was having a nightmare, and when he woke up, I started moaning moments after. He was freaked out. A few minutes after that, my husband came running into the room, freaked out himself. He asked my son and myself what was going on. I proceeded to tell him everything. We said a quick prayer and went back to sleep. That was right around 3 a.m. once again. About a month after all of this happened, I went into my bedroom to take a nap. As I was falling asleep, still aware of my surroundings, I heard a whispering laugh. After hearing this laugh, I started to pray. I feel dread or danger when seeing these entities or hearing laughs. I bought some holy water, sage, and blessed the house, and since then nothing has occurred. I have a few other things that have happened, but this post is long enough, so I'll save them for later. My mother and I still talk about the shadow people to this day, and she thinks that her meditating was the reason I saw these entities. If you've reached the bottom of this post, thank you so much for taking the time to read it. If anyone knows what's going on, please let me know and give me some advice. Warning. This is a long story, and please don't read it if you get scared of this kind of thing. This is all real, and I need advice. When I was about 4 or 5, I started becoming terrified of something. For context, my bedroom door would be open, and I could see the top of the stairs from my bed. Something was there. It was a dark, formless shadow lady that would crouch at the top of the stairs, with long, what I can only assume to be hair, and long claws. She had red lights for eyes, and my first interaction with her was when we moved into that house. Originally, I didn't start off by seeing it. It would be little things like shuffling at night, or it would call my name and tell me to go downstairs. It would be saying that in my mother's voice. I responded the first time and went downstairs and found nothing. It happened about 3 times or so before I told my mother about it, as I thought she was playing tricks on me. She told me that it would be okay and that I had nothing to worry about. Then, I saw her. Whatever it was. It appeared at the top of the stairs and would stare at me in my bedroom for hours. It would whisper to me and talk to me in my mother's voice. It would appear in the early AM and never during the day or early night. It kept happening for months and months until it got worse. My mother was working on getting her social work degree, so she was usually up in her office that was across from my room. I don't remember this next part. I'm recalling this from what she told me years after this happened. She heard me get up very late one night, and she wanted to see if I needed anything. As she left her office, she saw me walking with my eyes open, looking terrified. She asked me what I was doing. I said that she called me to go downstairs. At this point, my mother was terrified. She took me to get therapy in a nearby town and hoped for the best. The therapist claimed it could be that I had an overactive imagination and that I would grow out of it. My mother took solace in that and figured the therapy was going to work. It was about a month or so later that I sleptwalked for the second time ever in my life, or since, and tried to walk down the stairs again. My mother ran to me this time and grabbed me as I was at the edge of the stairs, about to plummet down. She woke me up the next day and she had tears in her eyes. She told me that if anything happened from then on, that I was to tell her from start to finish. That weekend, she took off to her job out of town. We lived in a very small town, so there wasn't much work. That weekend, I woke up and heard shuffling downstairs. Maybe it was my stepfather, or perhaps my mother had stayed home sick. I headed into the kitchen and see a kind-looking old man sitting down at the table, except he wasn't right. He had a pale complexion about him, and his eyes seemed devoid of all life. He reached for me, and I sprinted upstairs as fast as I could and started crying. My stepdad came out of his room and asked what was going on. I told him, and he said that I must have been dreaming. I told him I was awake, and that I had been for quite a while, but as per usual, he didn't believe me. My stepfather was not one to believe in the supernatural. Fast forward a few months of going through that, and waking up in the middle of the night seeing it, staring at me with these beady red eyes, and we finally moved out due to the emotional stress it had put on all of us, and another job opportunity that my mother had been offered. I hadn't experienced anything for years, and it wasn't until I turned 18 that my mother started to see it as well. It was a late night. I had just gotten back from hanging out with some friends, and I used the bathroom right outside of my parents' room. Their door was open and they could see the hallway well. As I'm relieving myself, my mother knocks on the door. I ask what's going on, and she asks me who is in the bathroom with me, angrily. The hair on my arm starts to stiffen and stand straight up. I tell her no one, and ask why she would ask that. She tells me that she saw my best friend Alex go in there with me. That, in fact, he had been holding onto my shoulders as we walked into the bathroom, and right before we went in, he smiled at her, maliciously. She was worried about me. I opened the bathroom door and told her no one had come home with me. She looked around, and once she confirmed it with herself, she told me that she was scared and went back to bed. That was the first time someone else had seen something following me, and it terrified me, as I usually feel as though something is following me at a very close pace at night, usually at about 4 feet behind me, or closer. I had largely forgotten about the shadow woman, as it was heavily traumatic, but then something happened. It was my cousin that made me remember everything. His name was Jake, and he was a very young and positive person. He had moved into that house about 3 years ago now, and as he had started working at a job in the town and wanted to be closer to it, he asked my family, and my aunt, not knowing about our experiences there, told him that house would be perfect. He lived there for about a year, and I'm not sure what he experienced, or if he experienced anything in that time, but after that year of him living there, I got a call from my other cousin Anthony. He told me Jake had passed away. I asked how it happened, and he said the police couldn't figure it out, and they ruled it as a suicide. Apparently, in the dead of the night, he decided to light the house on fire, get in his truck, drive 30 feet, while driving, unload 3 shots of his pistol into his chest, and swerve into the ditch. Now, the thing that does not make sense to me is he shot himself in the chest, and did it 3 times. Not only that, but he burnt that house down, and he didn't even own it. He was one of the most positive and happy people I've ever met. He had a kid and a wife to support as well. When I heard all the news, it just didn't make sense. Then I got the sense of dread as to why he would get rid of that house. I just hoped that he truly got rid of the horrors that were inside. Fast forward a few years, and I'm currently 21, and I've been recently getting dreams about an old woman who pounces out at me, and I wake up terrified. It wouldn't mean anything to me, but on the same night my roommate, let's call her Emily, had gotten a very eerily similar dream. We both described the woman, and she was the exact same in both of our dreams, except hers was slightly different. She had seen that old woman and a shadowy figure. The figure tried to pull her feet at the end of the bed, and she had woken up. The same night I had the dream about the same old lady that had woken me up and terrified me. A withered old lady with rags for a dress, a weathered complexion, gray hair, and a mischievous yet playful manner. I'm scared. I'm scared I may see the shadow person again. The last time I heard her, I told her to go away. Perhaps I was wrong. Hey guys, this is Woody. Thank you so much for listening to the first in a series of what I hope to be several other scary stories I tell just in time for Halloween. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. Don't forget to click the like button. It really helps me out. And if you have any suggestions for any other future stories, just leave a comment down below. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, because it can be really scary out there.